back to front. Fuck, how do I make that go around?
You're so close to being there. Just fold the earpiece.
I can hear you.
Oh,
that's it.
Now.
Yeah, I can hear you. So left, go right. How close do you think? Welcome to episode 10 of Agencyphonics. We've done it. We've gone from episode 1 to episode 10 in about a couple of months. I think we've got about 40 more planned this year, so we're really going to be upping our game. So welcome, everybody. I hope you've been enjoying the show so far. As always, a quick thank you to our two sponsors. First, we've managed to find some sponsors, by the way. Pete, did you know that? He's not listening. Okay, so we have two sponsors. Whaaaat are now officially our sponsor because they donate the studio to us. This is run as a social enterprise and not for profit, so we do rely on those kind of donations. Simon, the CTO, and Pete are currently co-producing over there behind me. Pete should be next to me, but unfortunately, Caitlin, our producer from the local college, has got A-level exams or something like that. So something important for her future career. And so thank you to Whaaaat, the incredible web hosting organization, infrastructure, cloud, anything to do with that. Please, if you need any of that stuff, please buy it from them because it will really help me ease my conscience and guilt for taking up all of their resource and making them spend lots of money on expensive equipment. So second of all, we are sponsored by Agencynomics. If any of you out there need any financing for your agency to improve your cash flow, check out Agencynomics. It's dedicated to helping you improve any of your financing arrangements and stops you using cash. Doesn't it, Pete, to go out and buy expensive monitors? By now, hopefully everyone's heard this story about how I went out and bought loads of monitors for cash and then I couldn't make payroll because I should have financed them. But that's another story for another day, maybe, as most people have heard that. So welcome. I've been really looking forward to this episode. And I just said that to my two guests today, and they went, yeah, I bet you say that to everybody. But actually, genuinely have, because those of you who know me well know that I'm madly passionate about innovating work cultures and innovating new ways of working and trying and testing and slaying those sacred cow's the right word, slaying whatever it is, slaying those old kind of ways of working. You know, I'm very anti-hierarchical organizations and very anti kind of organizational constraints, and I think my guests today have got some fantastic stories to share. And if I'm going to title this episode, just to hook you in now, what unlimited holidays for your team? So that'll just tease you into what we're going to talk about. And they will share their experiences with us. So without further ado, I would like to welcome, I've got to be really careful I do this because I nearly messed it up. And as you know, I forgot one of the guest names in one of the previous episodes, which was not cool.
So I won't take
and she was a client. That was the worst thing. But anyway, so I've got Nick Reddico from the agency Reddico, and his brother is his business partner, who's Luke Reddico.
That's correct, yeah.
But he's not got Luke with him. He's got Luke Carl, which is where I'm getting confused today.
Luke Kyte.
Kyte, no, call him Luke. Oh, do you know what? This is going to be and I do these shows live, right?
It was close.
Yeah.
Close.
Oh well.
At least
it's going to be easy for me to remember Nick and Luke. I'll just pretend you're his twin brother. Well, not twin brother, but he does look a bit like his brother. You're not twins, are you?
No, we're not. No, there's 5 years difference. So I'll
oh really? That, yeah. You're younger.
No.
So that's why you're taking it again.
I hope Luke's watching.
He actually came to a dinner recently. We were round table. Did he tell you? Did he enjoy it or not?
I haven't spoken to him since.
You haven't spoken to him. Well, great, close brothers, clearly. And we, I don't know if you heard the other episode that we did. We had two sisters in who owns an agency called Skin and Blister, because that's rhyming slang. And then we interviewed a guy who does it with his business with his brother, Hugh at RPM. And did you see that episode? No. So what we did was we Googled what was brother brothers because we thought he should rebrand from RPM to rhyming slang for
change his
brother.
brand.
It's a manhole cover.
Man, I'll cover nice.
Yeah, it's not going to work really for an agency name, is it?
Not really.
So let's start with you, Nick. Please, can you tell me a little bit about Reddico, how you started, how the journey began?
Well, it started back in sort of 2013, 2014, and actually my brother went first, and he's very driven and always wants to do his own thing. And so he's there first, really, and just started building up the client base. And then I joined shortly after, and then we've just kind of been growing the agency over the last few years. We've moved from offices. We first started out in a very small, tiny
Where was
office.
your first office?
It was down in Kent, in Kings Hill. It was a box
You didn't
office.
have a bedroom or a bathroom or somewhere,
Well,
a shed?
Yeah, so he started in his bedroom to start with.
Yeah.
And then we kind of moved from that to the first office. No windows or anything in the first office.
Quality.
There wasn't enough room for all of us, so like when the three of us were in, we kind of had to share desks and things like that. And it's just kind of when you look back now, you kind of realise like how far that you've come. Like I feel we're always, as owners, are always looking forward and like what's the next thing, what's the next goal with the target. You very rarely take time to sort of just take stock of things and look back and realise actually how far you've come, how many offices and how far the team has grown in size. And it's quite humbling, really.
Yeah, I like that because often when Pete and I are with clients, there's some agencies who do actually look back a lot, and they almost look back too much, and they overanalyze everything, and it almost stops. And I think the agencies that grow to be most successful are the ones that constantly look forward. They still glance over their shoulder just to make sure things are okay. But I think your philosophy is probably part of the success you've got because, you know, if you're not growing, you're dying, and you're kind of looking forward on how you're progressing. And so that's great.
The last 3 years, I think we've grown like average on like 40% each year.
Wow. That's great.
Which is like for us, it's just like a lot of it's down to like hard work and kind of determination in terms of just trying to grow, so we got a target of getting to sort of 50 people and like 5 million turnover, and put like a 5-year plan together. And we're kind of like 3 years into that now, and it's weird how when you sort of not pluck numbers out the air, but when you're sort of forecasting that far in advance, you can't really picture what it's going to be like sort of 2 or 3 years time, and it's uncanny how close we've got to those numbers each year. It really is. Like we're into the third year and we're kind of on track both in terms of like revenue wise, but also the size of the team. So
Pete is going to love what you just said, aren't you, Pete?
I do absolutely love that. Yeah, it's one thing that we covered the other day at an agency, wasn't it? We had was it a 5-year plan? And I think it's fair to say that the journey's not going to be a nice straight line. It never matches the spreadsheet, but I think it's good that if you look back over that period and you're kind of there or thereabouts, it's very satisfying.
But it's spooky, isn't it? I'm sure it's self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Totally
You pick these figures out of the air, saying I'm going to be there in 5 years, but somewhere along the line, and I know the guys at Whaaaat here. I mean, we sat down years ago, didn't we? We looked at the numbers, and it's uncanny how close it is to that. So I think it's really great you did that. And again, I'm not blowing smoke up your arse here, but like a lot of people just don't do that. They don't sit down and say, what does that plan look like? And because they find it hard, I think, to just put those numbers in the air. So again, I think it's a real credit to what you've done there. And
I think each year you just try
don't
and
fuck up the last 2 years.
Well, that is, the pressure's on now. I think each year you kind of just grow up a little bit more and you start thinking a little bit bigger. And I think that the biggest change is like having support around you to help change the mindset of if we want to be a £5 million company, we have to start thinking and acting like that. And sometimes you need people that have been there and done that, or to sort of help shift on your thinking around things. And I think that's definitely been helpful. We've worked with sort of mentors throughout our journey, and some of that sort of 5-year plan forecasting is what they've brought into the business to help sort of give that vision, really. And it's really helped shape our direction.
Well, I think that's key. I mean, the first thing we do as advisors is we do the same thing. So I think all good advisors sit down, figure out the plan, and that's great. But the thing I love you just said then was about thinking bigger, because this has been on my radar for the last couple of weeks. Pete and I keep thinking about writing a book on this, because it's easy for a lot of advisors to come in and say to you, you've got to think bigger. But what does that actually mean? And how do you translate it? And I I wrote a LinkedIn post. I put it in the show notes, and I think you saw it. And I made a comment because your title said, looking to acquire agencies. And for me as an MD, that's what I call and if you're, I think it's like you're £500 an hour for every million turnover. So if you're running a £3 million agency, your salary is £1,500 an hour, and you've got to be working on things that are worth £1,500 an hour, and not start doing spreadsheets in the corner. Or in fact, since I wrote that post, I've got loads of owners have got a list of all the things that they do that they should be delegating to other people to do. But the thinking bigger thing, whenever someone says to me they've become 5 million, it's because I can't explain it, but they just say, I just believe that I'm a £3 or £5 million agency, and everything I do, all the actions I take, seem to just kind of dictate that same behaviour. It's a behavioural shift, really. But I mean, just a question to you: what do you think what's helped you think bigger, and what do you know? Is there anything in particular that?
Well, I guess it's part of it is like setting out where it is that you want to be, and then just sort of having that time where you can reflect on that and that self-awareness to say, well, how are we gonna get there? And if you want to grow, you have to sort of, like you said, shift away from the things that you're doing now that are sort of more day to day, but aren't part of what you need to grow, and kind of looking at the bigger picture things and making sure you're. It's a bit like the cliche, like working on your business, not in your business. And it's an issue that myself and the other two directors have struggled with over the years, is moving away from sort of the day-to-day work and focusing on the business. And we've got better at it, and we sort of go through sort of highs and lows around it. We're getting dragged back into stuff, but we're much more self-aware now of where we need to be and putting things in place quicker to sort of stop that happening. That's
classic. Like how many people do you think? How many people have you got in the team now?
It's about 25, 26.
Okay, and so I always got told by my outside advisors, people would always say, you've got to learn to work on the business, not in the business. And I was like, I didn't have enough people to be able to do that. And so I used to get really frustrated. But I do remember when I was about your size, I was actually about 28 people. I sat back in the chair one day and I went, I've got someone to do everything now. Yeah. And at that point, I thought, now I can work on the business. But I think it's like you said, and then what happens is you grow, and then you feel like you've got to go back in again and fix problems, and you get pulled in. But actually, I find I get really frustrated when people come to me and say, I've been told I've got to work more on the business in it, and they're full staff. And I'm going, but just no way you can do that right. You're just not big enough yet.
Because if it's a real, I think it's easier for people coming outside to look at that and to say that to you. And for me, it's been a gradual shift where it hasn't been like my time is now completely on the business. It's been shifting bits over time to where I can spend more of the time, like 70% working on the business and still 30% in the day to day. Because at the end of the day, you have bills to pay as a company, and it's like you can't step back completely because work won't get done or invoices won't get sent out, that kind of thing. Like you need to still look at generating that revenue to keep driving the business forward. So for us, it was kind of like getting the right people in the right places, and part of that comes with growth, defining responsibilities, making sure that's clear, everyone knows what they're doing and what they're supposed to be doing, and kind of making that shift and having, okay, so how do we move away from where we are now to freeing up our time? And it's growing the team, and that comes over time, naturally. Yeah.
So you're based in Kent?
Yep.
And you've got barns, have you? Or?
Barns. Well, so the office is based on an apple orchard. It's a converted oast house.
There's a lot of cider drinking going on, basically.
I wish there was a cider part of it. And yeah, we're.
Do you own the apple trees?
We don't know.
Damn! I've got a great cider recipe. That's all. I've got an orchard as well at home, and I make champagne cider. Nice. So if you can next year, October's the time to do it. Maybe you can go and just jump in there.
Take a couple of trees.
Yeah, shake a couple of trees. Buy yourself all the kit. Doesn't take long. It'd be quite a good team building. Anyway, sorry. So you're in basically in the countryside. It is a barn.
Converted oast house. So
oast houses. Yeah, so you get a lot of those down that part of the world.
So it's a nice location.
You're near Tunbridge Wells.
It's near Tunbridge Wells,
There's a lot of agencies in Tunbridge Wells.
There's a growing. It seems to be growing growing area down in Kent.
Why is it, do you think? There's so because there is quite a few there.
There's quite a few design agencies down there as well. There's good connections to Tunbridge Wells into London. I guess there's more people spread out into different areas. You've got sort of like Brighton, you've got Tunbridge Wells, you've got like other parts of Kent which are sort of like growing
Does everyone
hubs.
drive in every day?
So I guess it's not the answer because we've got flexible working, so people kind of choose their own hours, choose their own days, that kind of thing.
So back in the day when we didn't have flexible working, Pete and I rocked up in our barn. We had 8 people, and then by the time we left, we had 40. There were 40 cars every day coming in.
Yeah.
The farmer hated us. I mean, she was not happy. But of course, flexible working makes it a lot easier. It would have made it easier for us, Pete. We had no internet, did we, either? We were probably the only digital agency in Hampshire that had a free serve dial-up connection, or 8 of them or something anyway. So you're still there. Can you expand there? Is that you can?
We're taking another part of the building at the moment as we're kind of growing, going through whole redesign at the moment. So we've just kind of like grown over the years, and we kind of get to the point now where we are thinking like about location and what it looks like at 50 people. I think the challenge like with anyone outside of London is recruitment, and like where, especially in digital, it's like finding the right people. Not only just now that culture is so important, it's like almost you've got another added layer of like, can they do the job? Do they have the right skills? But also, will they fit in with the rest of the team? And we've had people that kind of haven't fitted in and had to sort of deal with some of the challenges that have come about as a result of that. I think culture is like this ever evolving sort of process that you continually work to improve on.
So when you started though, what point in your growth journey did you realise that culture was important, do you think? Because when you start off, you don't really... Do you think much about it? I mean...
Yes, but in the wrong way.
Yeah.
So before I left, I was working for an agency in London called AIMA, and that's where I kind of learned my skill set. And they were very big on sort of like the social aspect of things, of like bringing people out, getting people together. And so when we left, and sort of me and Luke started Reddico, that was the kind of things that we were focusing on, sort of the after work drinks, like the very sort of going out and doing like an activity each quarter, that kind of thing. And there was a point back in sort of 2017 now where we started using like the NPS score, so Net Promoter Score, and internally, some people refer to it as ENPS
for employees.
I don't really like that term.
Do you not?
I don't like the term.
It's because I think on Office Vibe they call it ENPS, and I think some people here actually I think they have a TNPS for their technical as well, like the score for the technical services. Anyway, but I
just generally don't like the term.
But it's NPS, right? Net Promoter Score. I'm a massive fan of Net Promoter Score.
So we use this.
And do you just do that one question to your employees?
One question.
Okay. So do you use a tool to do that, or do you? I'm just getting really into asking about tools at the moment because.
So we did use a tool. It didn't quite do exactly what we needed, so we kind of built our own, and now we use our own. So we got our own internal NPS tool, we got our own 360 tool, those kinds of things. So like we kind of moved away to sort of customize what we need.
Might be long, and you'd be pivoting that off as a product like every other agency, getting distracted. Running two businesses.
We got distracted last year with sort of shiny object syndrome. That was definitely one of the lessons learned for last year. But just going back to where we were around NPS. So we sent internal NPS out, and I think we got 4 detractors from a team of 12, where 3 of us were directors. So that hit us quite hard in terms of actually it wasn't quite what we were expecting. Like we thought, we know there's always like room for improvement, but like detractors is like 6 and below, and that's kind of like we don't want to be here type thing. So it was quite a bit of a shock, and we were kind of taken back in that. Like what are we doing? Like we thought we were doing the right things, and we now know that we weren't. We thought it was sort of like the drinks and the culture and like the table tennis type scenarios. Like for me, those are like the icing on the cake. But you've first got to get like the ingredients right to build the right culture. And a lot of it came out of that, and we took it personally to start with. For directors, we thought like we're kind of giving everyone anything. We're like quite forward thinking in our approach, and like we're still getting low scores. Like what's wrong here? And it kind of like you then become a bit more self-aware, and you try and treat it as like feedback. Okay, so there's something here that we're missing that we can't see that we need to improve on. And there was like an underlying feel between me, Luke, and Craig, the other director, that the traditional business structure is quite archaic. It hasn't changed for a long time. It doesn't really fit with the way that we live today, and it doesn't really fit with like the global world of how we deal with clients, and yet we still confine everyone really to the 9 to 5. So there was that underlying feel that...
Where did that come from? Because...
I don't know. No,
Pete, it sounds so familiar, doesn't it, when he talks about this stuff? Sorry, it's like what you just said is what I say every single day when I explain the journey. But yeah, it's fascinating.
So we had 4 detractors, and so me, Craig, and Luke was like, this is an opportunity to change things and define like how we really want. Like a playbook, how we really want to run the company. So we spent 3 months and we kind of like wrote a manifesto of how we wanted to change things going forward. We looked at people like Zappos, Great Game of Business, Maverick. We looked at other companies in terms of like how
reading here as well.
My favourite book, Maverick.
How they set out theirs.
How many years ahead was he? Like Maverick.
I know.
It's like 40 years ago he wrote that book, and he talks about circular pods, not triangles. I mean, he was so ahead of his game.
And it only kind of feels like he's starting to feel, but it doesn't even feel like we've got to like a tipping point around it either. But so we spent 3 months, we like revisited our values, we hired an external company to come and help with that. That kind of didn't quite work out, and so we redefined everything. We set out, and it was based on sort of like fundamental beliefs that around sort of autonomy, like people work best in small teams when they're trusted. Like people putting trust in people to kind of make their own decisions. Like transparency empowers people, and it's just a fundamental core beliefs that how we wanted to move forward and kind of open the business up, allow people to help shape the direction of where we were going, getting their buy-in to the changes that we wanted to make, and we kind of then set out the vision of where we defined our vision, we defined our mission, we defined our values, and we kind of set out these are the changes that we want to make into the company. And part of that around the culture side was the sort of self-regulated holiday, was the sort of just rewards of the team. So
flexible
working hours. But it's for us, it's a bit more than flexible working. Yeah. So we don't have restrictions on days or hours that people work, which is a challenge when you run a digital agency, when we often sell on days and hours. Yeah. So it's kind of like how do you bake that in? And a lot of it, we kind of wrote the extreme end of it, of like going all in with it. Like let's open kind of everything up. So we're talking like financials, we're talking any like internal 360s, not only just doing 360s, but making 360s completely open so that anyone could see a 360 review that was left by anyone else. And like your traditional mindset of how normal companies are built, that they're built to control 5% of people that will take the mick. They're not built to empower the 95% of people that want to be there to bet themselves, to develop their careers, to fulfill their passion, to help move the company forward. And it's kind of flipping that round.
You read Reinventing Organisations, didn't you? So
Luke's read it.
You've read it. Yeah. Do you know what? There's a really great... I'll make sure we put the show notes, but there's a really good... I mean, it's quite... Do you find it a tough book to read? Or
It is a hard book, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not...
very psychological.
Yeah, it's written by a sort of an ex-consultant for one of the big firms. But what you will love from that book is, if you get the pick, there's an illustrative book, and it shows through time why we ended up where we did. Yeah. So it starts off, it says, do you remember it was...
the red...
Yeah, red, which was almost like the slave trade. People work with no choice.
Yeah.
And then it moved to amber. Luke's going to help me with this.
Yeah.
Right? Amber,
To orange.
which was the religions and the armies and the military.
Yeah, so it was all
and
kind
it was
of
like
military.
religious structures, military, and then it moved. Then businesses. Then the businesses sort of took on those same structures. So the hierarchies and all the way through, and almost like that. People getting senior positions because of status, not because they've earned it. And no wonder we ended up with, by the end of the 20th century, 21st century, we end up with sort of like in a situation where we've got, disgruntled, Gallup Q12 survey showing us that, I always quote this number wrong, but 80-odd%, do you know, it's like 80% of people, don't, or 87%, somewhere around that. We're going to put them in the show notes as well, so I get it right. But 80-odd% of people are unsatisfied in their workplace, and the number one reason for that is their line manager.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, and that's that.
Yeah.
So for you to kind of question that and change that, it's quite big thinking, because a lot of people just go with it, right?
So we wrote it as in all-encompassing, all-in, so complete freedom, complete autonomy. And then because you're conditioned in a way through the sort of 9-to-5 working environment, traditional hierarchy, traditional structure, you start questioning the odd scenarios, like what if this happens and someone does this, and you try and start to question whether you should do that. And we went round in circles for quite a while, and just came to the conclusion that if we're going to do this and commit to this, we kind of have to go all in with our thinking, all in with our commitment to creating the sort of the culture that we want. And then we spent sort of the next 18 months.
When did you start doing? When did you kind of start?
So we kind
this
of
transformation?
wrote the manifesto in early, like Q1 2018.
So
and the other
couple
bit,
of years ago.
so after we wrote it, the question is like, how do we then implement it? That was the biggest challenge, and so we'd fallen short to the team a few times up until this point where we'd committed to do stuff and we hadn't done it, partly because we were getting dragged back into the day-to-day, and the team would see us promising things and then not delivering, because we would then be pulled back in, because again, the focus on sort of like revenue and sort of paying the bills, but it's that. So we kind of looked at it and said, it can't be on us to deliver it. So that's when we kind of like actually started talking about creating a dedicated role that we could give to someone to sort of take the manifesto, run with it, that could then come up with their own ideas alongside it and implement it, like someone that was completely responsible for implementing where we wanted to go. And that's kind of where like Luke's role emerged from. Like he was the standout person that we had within the company that knew us, that knew, that was there from very early start, that would be able to take this and execute on it. And that's what Luke's done, and Luke can talk sort of some more around
don't worry,
that.
I'm gonna get to Luke.
That's cool.
Luke's gonna get lots of questions from me, but I'm really curious at a high level moment is to go. So you clearly the last 2 years have put a lot of changes in. Did you test everything first, or did you? I mean, I don't want to go too much detail because Luke's going to ask all that. But I mean, did you just go, we're just going to do this and try and see what happens, or did you go pilot? Pretty much. Just threw yourself at it.
I think the mindset shift is again, like if you think a lot of when I talk about the shift that we made in culture and like the sort of the freedom that we've given people, like no one wants to be micromanaged in a role, and on the other side, no one wants complete freedom. They want kind of like freedom within guidelines to be able to do that, and that was a real focus about empowering people. And a lot of stuff that we've done, we came up against the question of like, if we can't do it, sort of like we were questioning why we couldn't, and it comes that if we trust the team, we should be able to do it. Like if we trust the team, we should be able to give transparency around financials. Trust the team, we should be able to allow them to work. Like everyone here is an adult, they should be able to choose when they come to work, when they work best. Like for me, I'm early in the morning. I'm like a 5 a.m. type starter. I enjoy that. That's when I work best. I don't work so well in the afternoon. But everyone's different. Like a couple of
this is an afternoon. You're doing it right for an afternoon now. I hope you haven't been up since 5 a.m. though.
I've got a 4-week-old daughter, so kind of like not sleeping at the moment. So
if you fall asleep halfway through this, we'll just switch it on to Luke. Don't worry.
So it's kind of like looking at enabling people to work when they're the best, and it's like, so I'll give an example. Like Tuesday this week, there was 4 people in the office, and by 2:00 it was just me. And it's kind of, for me, like we've got to the point now where before, if you'd had a company where one person got up and left at 3:00 in the afternoon, everyone would be like, where are they going? Why are they leaving? Like, what are they doing? It's all these questions. Or it'd be like, so-and-so was allowed to work from home for this reason, but I wasn't. And I can't find a better word to describe it than unnecessary layer of management that the inflexibility creates with like having to deal with requests, or can I work in this situation? It's like, you know what, it's just like we trust the team to make the right decision for the company, and like everyone's adults. And it's kind of, whenever I talk around this, and I know you're probably going to come onto the topic of unlimited holiday.
Oh, I really am.
But
everyone wants to know about unlimited. I mean,
they do.
We're all bored of the 4-day week. We want to move on to unlimited, but I am going to talk to you about 4-day week as well. So,
but I think it's just like, when you look at that, there's a lot of fear around the changes that were made. We had it, and whenever I speak about it, people always come up with reasons why they couldn't do it in their organisation. I think the really important part of it is that it actually makes you ask better questions of yourself, and makes you ask better questions of your business and the team that you've got there. And whenever I talk to people about it, like, oh, we couldn't do that because this person would just do this, or they would take 2 months off. And it actually makes you question, like, if that's the case and you can't do this, have you got the right people working for you? And are you just avoiding like dealing with that question right now? Or is it yourself that's got to make a mindset shift to empower it and empower the team? And I think that's the...
Do you think that there was... you've had that shift to a growth mindset more in the business from where it was, or did you just have that but you didn't have the right framework before? Do you think you had the right people but the wrong framework, or do you think some of the people were wrong when you first did your MPS?
Probably a bit of both.
Okay.
A bit of both, actually. There were definitely some people at the time that have moved on since. Like when we first started talking about this, there was a couple of companies that were doing similar things to where we wanted to go, and we sort of just spoke to them. And I know that they decided to take a much harsher line on this, and they let people go prior to rolling these changes out. Like, big wholesale cultural shifts. We kind of get to the point where, as we started rolling out, the people that were in the team at that point, we felt were the right people to embrace the changes. Probably like a year earlier, we probably didn't quite have the right balance in terms of the people.
How many people were you when you did this? When you did that first MPS, do you remember?
12. There's 12 people in total.
It's a really good size, actually. 12, because if you imagine having to do that change when you had like 200.
Yeah.
Do you think? I mean, I always think that would be, but I think you had it's a really good size to be able. Like, if people leave it too late, then it's sometimes hard to go back. And
so one of the challenges that we have now,
like the Maverick situation, remember when the son goes in and he says, "I haven't got time to change everyone," so he just fires everybody when his dad's on holiday. It's like, what? But he's like, it would take me too long to change the mindsets of everyone in the business. Yeah, I'm not advocating everyone does that.
So by the time we came to roll it out, we're at the point where we felt everyone in the team could embrace it. We felt we had discussion, and there may be some people that couldn't, and that through their own choice. But everyone's been fully on board. Everyone's enjoyed it, and now we're kind of, everything is like, okay, well, what's next? It's not resting on it. It's like, what does manifesto 2.0 look like? How do we change it again, and how do we keep improving?
Right, so we're going to finish on that because I want to know. But what just tell me about the now for the minute. Then we'll go more into the details. So what it looks like now in terms of what we do.
So
you won some big award last year. Yeah. What did you win?
So part of the great places to work.
Great places to work.
So we finished 9th. In the small business category for best place to work in the UK, and I think it was the highest agency finish across all 3 categories. I think.
Well done, that's amazing. It's a great accolade.
So I mean,
and the MPS score now is what?
Luke's gonna go into that. I don't want to take that away.
Okay.
But
as a result of all the changes you made,
so the MPS
you fixed the MPS.
So when we started, the MPS was that first one that we did was in the 40s. I think it was like 45.
Yeah, it's 40-ish,
45, and that's
pretty good.
In MPS terms, that's still good. But when you're a team of 12 and you've got 3 directors and the rest of the team, and there's still like
Well, you gave yourself a 10, is that what you're
4
saying?
detractors. No, we wouldn't have.
Yeah, they popped it up.
We did 3 of us, 10, 10, 10. Our company is brilliant.
It was minus 50 before that.
Yeah.
So it's still in the good range, but when you've got 4 detractors, and that's like people don't want to be here, you've got some issue to change. But even for us, at a size of where we are now, sort of 25 to 6 people, it's still taken us like 18 months to make this transition. So we have things like 360s, which are open now. We have like flexible working hours, we flexible working days. So people don't always have to work the same amount of hours or the same days each week. It's really around when they work. And it's a mindset shift of moving away from input to output. Like, our clients happy? Is work getting done? Is the business moving forward? Are our key results for this quarter being here? And are people developing and pushing themselves forward personally? And if that's the case, then does it matter if someone works 5 hours or 7 hours in a day, because they're more efficient? I think that in the agency world, especially my experience around London, is that always that perception of like, if someone's there working late, that they're somehow more committed or they're somehow putting in more effort. And it could just be that they are disorganised or distracted in the day and not get work done. And so,
I mean, the only challenge I would say, by the way, everything you say, I absolutely 100% agree with. I mean, why on earth, and I did start to tell this in a previous episode, why on earth we can walk out of our own front doors and manage our own lives, have our own internet banking, pay our own rent and mortgages, manage everything. We know our roles and responsibilities. We shouldn't go and kill people. You know, we shouldn't do other bad stuff. We do that, but when we go to the workplace, you know, in the big wide world, all of a sudden you've got to report something, you've got someone to control everything for you, and it just doesn't. And so everything you say is music to my ears. The 2 questions I've got are, I do still think there have been, I'm going to say this, we worked pretty hard at Blue Halo. I think we were very progressive, because we're talking, you know, the highlight of my journey was probably, Pete and myself, was about sort of maybe 12 to 14 years ago was the peak, and or definitely 12 years ago was the peak. And, you know, we had flat structures. We didn't have flex working. We did work hard. We worked through the night. We won £1 million pitches, and we worked 60 hours of 3 hours sleep. I never asked one person to work late. Everyone wanted to work late. Everyone, the culture was, we all knew what we were doing. Everyone was working together. We were a high performing team. Sometimes, you know, we were low performing because we were a little bit burnt out, but we were very self-aware. Everyone could cry. Everyone cried at Blue Halo once. We all hit a point, but not in a negative way. Like, we cried because actually we were having a tough time, but we would support each other. It wasn't like, I actually told the guys who bought my business that, and he was like, huh, what kind of business are you? But it's like, I think that you can still have people working in offices. You can't, like, there are some hierarchies that are superb. I don't think, but on the whole, I don't think they work. I think flat structures, I think all the things, you know, purpose, autonomy, so still damping stuff, mastery at the heart of your business. I think scrapping appraisals and making more frequent, you know, plans with your personal development plans or something along those lines. I'm sure you do these things. But so I think it can do. My question to you, though, the second thing, the part is, you're a digital marketing business. So how much of that do you think you're different to like an advertising agency or a technical agency? Because I remember I brought in flexible working in 2001. And my morale went from 9 down to 4. It went the other way. And do you know why? Because all the creatives in my team used to come in early, because creatives are notoriously good at starting early. And all the technical people in my team decided they wanted to work late. And and in the middle I had lunch. And people together only actually spent like in a 4-hour period. There was a very short window. So it meant that we'd lost the kind of collaboration, and the loneliness started to kick in. So actually, weirdly, I tried this ahead of the curve, and I had to stop it. I think the world's changed. Like, technology makes it better now. But my question is, do you think there's a difference in a more collaborative, like, I think there's in digital marketing, I think there are a lot more silos to a certain degree. I mean, I think you can go away and do SEO, paid search, or you can manage retargeting, or I'm going to pick up some buzzwords for you. You know, you can do that stuff. Pretend I know what I'm talking about. You can do some of that stuff. But do you? But in a big, you know, what happens with collaboration? Does that get in the way, or how do you manage that?
It's a good question. I think firstly, I think things have changed a lot in that time. I think our lives have changed. Because we say 2001,
yeah,
so
no,
that's 20 years. I think the working world has changed. I think our lives have got busier. I think people. There's more tools out there that make it easier to have collaboration. How easy is it to jump on a video conferencing call now type of thing than it was 20 years. And I think it's also become accepted now much more that actually flexible working should be part of what you have in your life. So I think there's part of that that's probably a big culture shift for them to sort of go from those extremes to not seeing people when perhaps because you were leading the way, it wasn't discussed, and this seemed like a big shift from what everyone else was doing. In terms of what...
I mean, I'm being devil's advocate.
No, I like the question.
But
I think so. In terms
what
of
tools do you use to try and bring collaboration? Or do you still say to people, you need to be in at certain times? I'll
come back to that one. I just want to answer the other one first of all, about in terms of what makes us different, because you said flexible working. I think for us, we've tried to go a bit beyond that, and it's down to the person to choose what days they work and what hours they work, and that may fluctuate week to week. If there's a busy project, they might work more hours and they might work less hours the following week. So to have that, and then it's kind of like that transparency layer in terms of everything's kind of open, from the financials to internal NPS. So if anyone leaves NPS score, it's all open. We kind of share that feedback, and I think for us, the more transparent you become, the more empowering it is for the team to make better decisions, to kind of think like business owners, to help you improve what you're doing. We moved away from managers. I think it's another contentious issue. So we have team leads and then coaches. And I think the issue with traditional managers is that it's a people person role, and not everyone is a people person in that way. And traditionally, the only way you get promoted is to go into a manager's role. And generally, it's the person that's best at their job, which is generally the technical person or strategic person, and they aren't always best placed to be the person, the people manager or the coach. And so a large part of that was separating that out in terms of enabling people to choose anyone in the company that they wanted to be a coach.
When you realised that, or was everyone happy to embrace the?
Everyone was happy,
to embrace that kind of shift.
To embrace it. So
do you remember the Zappa story when they did Holacracy? They lost 30% of the managers. Yeah. Because they said they wanted power in their role, which was, but that's, again, it's a size thing, so that was good for you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff, again, is what we've done is worked for us at our level. There may be questions of at Zappos size, how you scale some of these things out. And I guess we can only talk from our experience of going from sort of 12 to sort of 26, and the things that we've learned. And it's taken us time. Some of the biggest challenges we have now is actually because we rolled the changes out over 18 months, and having someone dedicated to do it like Luke has been key to the success. Because we wouldn't have been able to commit to and deliver half the stuff that we have done. But in terms of now, so this year we kind of launched a profit share scheme, so that the team get to share in the success of the company. We've moved away from sort of pay reviews being tied to sort of tenure. That's how long you've been at the company. More towards this year we've rolled out a salary panel where people can sort of apply for where they feel they should be. So things like that in terms of where we're shifting. We're constantly looking at how do we take what we are where we are and how do we move that forward and get that feedback
any of those
from
things, any things haven't worked or won't, obviously everything's worked so far.
Yeah.
But if something wasn't to work, you would just keep experimenting and keep testing.
And it's getting that feedback from the team. So
I guess I'm trying to make the point that at least you're trying to do something different. You're not just going, well, it's not going to work. I mean, sometimes it's better to try and fail, right? And to not try at all. So I think that's a really great philosophy that you're treating organizational transformation, which is what you're doing, in a really, really positive way. And everyone is embracing change, because most organizations, they hate change, don't they?
Yeah.
So,
and it's also the evolution. So
whatever. So before you start, when did you come into the business? You were always in the business at the beginning. Were you?
So I joined. I was probably sort of number 5 in the company.
Number 5. And what was your role when you first came in?
So I was a writer, so just a content writer. So I came
so
in.
You weren't some head of talent or
some
had
no experience in this.
culture guru.
No, absolutely. So it's all kind of learned from, I suppose, from the books and all that kind of stuff. So I joined originally as a writer, sort of built up a team of a sort of content marketing team, sort of brought in people to work alongside the content team. As the company sort of grew and got to sort of 12, 13, 14, it became a point where we needed someone to move into more of an operational role. So I then sort of, with the sort of skills and what I was doing in the company and sort of wearing many hats, moved into a more operational role. Okay. And then from that, with the manifesto getting launched and written, Nick then basically said to me one day, "This is the manifesto.
We need someone to own this.
Do it.
Go make it happen."
Absolutely. And that's where it kind of went from there.
And how did your journey start with that? Like, what did you do? Obviously, you had a vision from the founders, I guess. The learning curve that you went on, tell me about that journey. So
first of all, I thought, bloody hell, we're not going to do this. Because it was 6,000 words of, I suppose you look at it, it's like some kind of utopian type of society where everyone's got complete freedom and trust and responsibility to do what they want, when they want, how they want, and complete control over their job and autonomy over how they're doing it. And when you look at it and you've got experience of working in traditional companies and traditional structures, it's, how is this going to work? How are we going to be able to do this without something blowing up or going wrong?
Madness.
Yeah, clients sort of ringing up and saying this isn't getting done or things like that, and people not talking.
Yeah, he's not in the office today.
Yeah,
he's not in the office. It doesn't work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. He's at home.
If you want him, he's in the midnight. He's working. Call him then.
He works from 2 till 4.
Yeah. And I suppose for me it was a mindset change that needed to. I suppose the first thing to adapt was that mindset, and actually starting to believe the best in people and that people want to do the right thing. Obviously, you go back to the whole kind of damn pink purpose type stuff and what drives people is purpose, and looking at that and how we can give people responsibility to. So all the videos.
Bringing a profit share in.
Yes, we basically did that to. So I suppose what we kind of do at Reddico is we take little bits from everything and make it our own. Yeah. So we don't just go, right, that's a good idea, we're going to do that, but we go, we like this, we like this, we like this. How can we make this so that it's more Reddico? It's got a Reddico feel rather than just completely copying it from another company.
Does Luke need to be nearer the microphone, Pete?
I can come in slightly.
It's okay.
Is it okay? Because in my headphones, you're going, we're going to do this. Let's not knock the beer over. Right, sorry, because I just was a bit worried that your sound was coming out.
That's all right.
It cut. But can we recut that bit out? I'm joking. So, so what was the first thing that you got mindset? But what was the first? Let's say I'm going to call them features. No, what was the first initiative from the manifesto that you had to deal with, or had to sort of challenge, I guess?
So I suppose at first it was kind of creating a roadmap of how we could do this, because you can't do all at once. If you've got these 6 big areas in the company you want to change, you can't just go, right, do it all at once, because then something will explode, something will go wrong. So you've got to kind of put in place the framework of how it will work. And it all starts with job ownership. So a case of actually giving people the opportunity to set their own targets, putting 360 reviews in place, having all the NPS scores for clients.
And the frequency of those reviews?
So it started at 3 months.
And what was it before when you first set the business up? Never did
360s.
That's a good start. You started doing reviews. Brilliant.
Absolutely. Okay, so we built our own tool from it. Yeah. So normally the only review you ever had before was with your manager. And so again, but that traditional system where all you ever do is get feedback from your manager. You're never hearing from the people you work with on a day-to-day basis, or even other people who might not work with but want to know what they think of you and how you work and how you fit into the existing culture. So the way we do 360s is you pick 3 people to review you based on the core values of the company, and get kind of questions around what I can do to improve, what I'm doing well, what you like, what I'm doing, all that kind of stuff. So the first thing was getting the red flags in place. So if something did go wrong, so if we launched unlimited holiday or work from wherever you wanted to, we had those flags in place where actually this isn't working, we need to tweak something. Either the clients aren't happy, or the team aren't happy, or people aren't hitting their targets, whatever that might be. And once that was in place, it was then a case of, right, what can we do next? And that was all around the work-life balance. So the work-life balance was, as Nick's been talking about, the ability to basically have unlimited holidays. So there's no set number of days.
So was that one of the early, so you obviously got the on this roadmap piece. I mean, I love the fact that you've got a roadmap and you've actually got a plan. Always helps. But you sound like you're good at creating plans as well. But your first thing was obviously to read lots and go on a journey of discovery. Second thing was then, I'm just trying to break this down. It's very important to understand the process you went through. And then you were, we've got to find a mechanism to get the feedback, the 360. I love that you do 360 feedback. What was it? Ray Dalio's principles. Have you seen it in there? Where I think he gets a really bad time, doesn't he? And he doesn't handle it very well at all, which is quite amusing. So, is everyone nice about Nick and Luke, or do they give them quite touch? Do you get feedback as well?
We do 360.
Yeah, everyone does it. Yeah, everyone does it.
You sound like nice bosses. I'm sure you get a hard time. So you then did 360. Then what was next after that? Would you say was that unlimited holiday straight away?
So it was the combination of the whole work life section of the manifesto.
Oh, so that work life. Okay. So that was at the heart of it. Okay.
So it was holiday. It was choosing your own hours. It was working from home whenever you wanted to, paying for all sickness.
And did you consider at that point 4-day week? It wasn't the manifesto. Was that always, or did you just go, look, we're just going to go flexible rather
just
than
going to go flexible?
Did you look at it or not, or was it not really that?
We discussed it a little bit. For us, again, like I know.
Bearing in mind, we met because of Becky.
I know.
She's probably listening.
I was going to say, I know that Becky's implemented it, and they do very well. And like me and Luke saw them not so long ago, and their team have like fully embraced it. So I don't think it's necessarily like there's a right or wrong here.
Yeah,
it's
like
kind of
before,
like looking at it and
culture.
go, what do you think's right for your culture? What do you think's right for your company? And what would they embrace it? And we were kind of talking about, okay, if we're going to talk about being or giving people complete freedom, we kind of felt actually we're going a step further and sort of saying, okay, you can only choose. Kind of gave that, kind of fitted with where we wanted to go and what we'd committed to actually doing in the manifesto.
Okay.
But yeah,
I think that's really smart. I mean, that's what I was trying to say before. Really, I think there isn't always a right or wrong, but your culture, you obviously were closer to it. You knew as what your vision was. I genuinely really, really impressed with what you've done. I think the way you've tackled it's really nice, and I think I've seen the 4-day. I'm quite an opinionated person, so I kind of like. I've seen the 4-day week done really well. To be fair, I've only really ever heard Becky say really positive things about it, and so I'm sure it's amazing. But I did meet somebody else who did a 4-day week, but actually the 5th they didn't do the early late start or anything. They literally just said the 5th day you spend it in the business. In fact, she's going to speak at our next event. I'll ruin it for anyone coming to our event. But on the 5th day, she just says, "Well, you have to work on yourself." Or your skill. So that's day for self-improvement.
It's like the 20% type thing.
Yeah. And I think they're a creative business. Maybe it works easier in that type of business. I think, obviously sometimes it does, some businesses that may struggle. But anyway, so you've got this crazy idea to do unlimited holiday. Did you read when
self-regulated?
Self-regulated holiday. Damn it! I call it unlimited holiday. It's not unlimited. Holiday. It's the same thing, though.
It's the same thing. It's just
it's the Reddico uniqueness.
It's not quite. It's the fact that I think this unlimited the idea of unlimited holidays become a bit of a gimmick. I think in terms of.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so you're a bit worried that everyone thinks that. It's a gimmick thing.
It's like a marketing thing. It's like it's not for us. It's really, and that's why it's.
Which I think the 4-day week, to be fair, seemed to at one point become a little bit faddy, and it probably isn't fair, but for the people that pioneered
I think the unlimited holidays seen as like a recruitment tool or something that you can put on and say that you do this. And there's been, I know there's been a lot of debate around it as to whether it's effective. Do people actually take more holiday than not? Like, how do you enforce that? Like, and there's studies out there that say people have rolled it out, and then actually people take less holiday, and things like that. So, like, I don't
did you
like
read that Harvard Business Review article that said, I can't remember the company name. Can you? And it was a great article. The guy who put it into business, and what the thing was that holiday had gone backwards.
Yeah.
That's what I read. But the second biggest problem was the people that worked in the company for the longest time. This was quite a big company, I think. Had accrued, like some of the more senior people had accrued more holiday.
Yeah.
So when it then became unlimited, those people said, well, hang on a minute. We've worked here 20 years. We've earned 10 extra days a year. Now everyone can have that. And that caused a problem there. So tell me what self-regulated holidays is and how does that work?
Because, I'll let Luke coming on that, but I think that's really interesting. And just going back to like the 4-day week, and it's like bigger, more established companies. We were obviously at the early days with much smaller number of people. Like for bigger companies, if they can look to doing like a 4-day week and it works for them, it's kind of a step in a right direction to that work-life balance. It's not that you have to go all in for it to be the right move. Like for them, in where they are, given their team, their culture, their company, the 4-day might be that first step that they take going towards that, or that works for the team. So yeah, it's not right or wrong. It's kind of like...
What the problem I have with that, I do want to talk about it because you guys are clearly experts, so I can banter with you in a positive way because you can tell me if you think I'm right or wrong. But I'm always told that a 4-day week is typically, and I'm sure there are people differently, but they do like an 8 till 6:30 or whatever, 4 days, so that people can follow their purpose or passion on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, they can get that. But for me, if your purpose or passion isn't what you do on the Monday to Thursday, then that means you're not doing what you love. No. What you love is on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and therefore you're not really happy in your job. That's just my perspective, right? So also, if you are, I've got to be careful stereotyping here, but like if you are a working dad who has to drop his kids at school in the morning and you can't do that, and well, you've got to drop them off an hour earlier when it's too early, or you can't leave early to pick them up, then because basically you don't finish till 7 at night, then surely that means that it's not very flexible, right? So the 4-day week actually, because I was told by a friend of mine he couldn't go to his fitness class in the evening because he had to work till 7. It started at 6. And he was finding it very frustrating, that constraint. And so
it's challenging.
But I don't know whether those companies are probably that inflexible, because if they're doing it, they're probably... But do you see the
again,
problem?
Are they doing it just because they think they should? Because they're ticking a box that it's a gimmick? Like if they're doing that and then they're being inflexible and not really embracing
but if their NPS goes up then and the customers are happy, and it doesn't matter, does it? Because maybe it's right. But
it doesn't matter in the short term.
Does that resonate with you guys or not?
So I spoke about this recently. I put a video out on LinkedIn around the 4-day week and sort of unlimited holiday and flexibility.
Can we put the link in the show notes for that one as well?
Oh, hopefully.
When I talk this, I'm just Abby is back there going, show notes. Sorry.
And if you think about the whole reason behind looking at flexibility, it's because you're getting very deep here, but everyone's very different. So as Nick kind of mentioned earlier, some people love getting up in the morning, cracking on with work and can get going. Some people can't. Some people are most productive sort of 10 till 2 maybe, and then could work a bit later on in the day. Who works at the most productive from 9 till 5 or from 8 until 6:30 straight?
Mine's 9 till 9:30.
Well, absolutely, but the chances are you're not going to be at your height in productivity for sort of 6-7 hours a day, and the 4-day week then compresses those hours even more into that. So it's good that the 4-day week
out by the Friday you have
absolutely.
Off,
baby. It's good that the 4-day week is looking to kind of give people a better life balance. What obviously we're trying to do, in the way that I suppose the reason why we went the way we did is because we're giving people the option to do what's right for them. So rather than conditioning everyone to 9 to 5 or 8 till 6:30, it's work when's right for you as long as you get the job done. So, but everything that we do, the only kind of disclaimer is have a positive impact, whether it's on your team, on your job, on your clients, on anyone else that you're working with. Just have that positive impact. So we don't care when someone comes in, if they're working from home, if they're taking leave, as long as they're getting that job done. That's all that's right for them and right for us. And the 4-day week kind of is a good way forward, but again, it just conditions everyone to doing exactly the same thing.
I think you guys have got it nailed. I think what you're saying is the smart. It just makes it's common sense.
The biggest thing is the mindset.
I'm productive
shift
in the morning.
at
I'm
the
not
start.
in the evening.
Yeah.
Well, I used to be the other way around. When I had my agency, I was rubbish in the morning and great at 10 at night. But you change, and so the fact that you flex and adapt, I think is if anyone's out there wants to change, I think they have to do.
You've got to kind of go all in with it, which is kind of what we said before. It's
what about your sort of duty of care about people who are? I remember a lot of people.
So you asked the question a little while ago around like when you implemented the flexibility that you saw an actual downturn in team morale and what we did around that. So look, most of the team are in on Mondays.
And to be fair,
we have a lot of
I did say that knowing that we didn't really have Skype or any way of them doing team meetings outside, but we still lost that campus feeling of everyone coming in and being together.
Yeah. So it's
high performing team.
It's a really good question. It's an interesting one because I think as more of the bigger companies move out of London, the big corporates, the big everything, flexible working will become more ingrained. I think this question is going to become more widespread as to actually that balance between flexible working around your life and building that team at work. And as a business owner, you want to give people flexibility and freedom, but you also want to be able to build, to nurture, and to grow that culture. And almost like that tribe mentality that you talked about earlier, like committed, like working through the night, that type of stuff to get things done. You kind of want that. And it is an interesting question. And we went back and forth quite a lot. So so everyone's generally in on a Monday, and then it's kind of flexible throughout the week from there. But we kind of
don't have to be in, but they just generally are.
Because that's when we've got most of our sort of weekly meetings where we kind of set out what we're going to do for the week. But we have things like Culture Fridays where like people come and get together. We have like quarterly off-site activities where the team will go out. We go away on yearly trips, so the whole team goes away together. And so like it's kind of that balance between, okay, if you're going to take those elements that you normally get from with everyone's in, and then move them to sort of more off-site activities, that's the sort of balance to try and continue to build that culture. I think if you take it away completely and you don't replace it with anything, then over time you have the potential of sort of losing that culture feel. And that was one of the concerns when we did it, is that if we give people complete flexibility and no one's in and they're working and they're feeling they're productive, what will our culture look like over time? And like we're now like 18 months in, and we feel like our culture's stronger than what it was. It's going, and we've still got a lot to improve on. We've still got a lot to work on, and this year is no different. Like there's a lot of elements that we want to continue to change and rethink. Like we've moved. I think our culture is more aligned with our thinking, but our company structure is still quite traditional. How it's set up, it's still quite top down. So
I think you're right about the London thing, by the way, because I had to go to a meeting in Liverpool Street the other morning, and I got to Waterloo, and I decided to walk. It's a 45-minute walk. I probably passed 400 people in 45 minutes. How many do you think were smiling? 2. And it was so miserable and so depressing. Now, living in the Shires, it doesn't, like, people are smiling and they are happy. And I think it was, I'm not rose-tinted glasses, but I think you are right. I think this, the constraints of this 9 to 5 and everyone commuting and everyone was, there was a malaise, and I just thought, God, look, we only live once, So I think you're right. I think if companies do start to move out, or they just start to implement more of these, I think they actually get happier workforces, and that we all know what that means, right? There's only benefits.
And it depends on how you define culture as well, because obviously, as Nick was saying early on, at the start we defined culture as kind of what we were giving people. So it's that table tennis, the nights out, the fun stuff in the office, and there's still a big emphasis on making sure that Reddico as an office is fun to be in, and it's good to be in, to catch up with people, that we go down the pub and we go out on these quarterly events and do activities. But it's not how much you give people for free, but how you free people to give more. That it's in office, and it's more like just kind of giving people more responsibility now, and that's what the culture is. The culture is the heartbeat of the business and how the business works and operates on a day-to-day basis. It's how people kind of take themselves and how they work and the way they do that and get their job done, rather than necessarily how fun it is to be there. And so it kind of depends, I suppose, on how you look at culture. And if people are enjoying what they're doing, they're loving the company. And if companies don't kind of start looking at this, they're the ones that are going to fall behind. If they carry on focusing on all the free food and the table tennis and all that kind of stuff, and not actually what people really want, which is purposing what they're doing and freedom to do what they want to do and that autonomy, then that's when companies go wrong. So the culture needs to be defined in the right way.
Yeah, some of the best examples of flexible working I've seen with agencies. Actually, the team have almost been more in the office. The office has been less like an office, and it's more, like a second home. Use that word, but it's like, it feels more like it's a place to go and meet, and they don't feel like they're having to work in it. But they still have the flexibility, and I think also I've seen when I see that happen, it stops any loneliness as well, because I think sometimes I remember when I used to have. Sometimes people working remotely or freelance or whatever, or come and try to work for me who've been freelance, sometimes there's an element of loneliness, and you've got a duty of care to sometimes make sure that people aren't hiding away, I guess, as well. But I think the innovating the workspace is becoming, because I've seen people with NPS scores really high, by the way, in agencies we work with, and then the office gets crowded, it gets too full up, and then it's how likely are you to recommend a friend or a colleague to work here? And actually, it's a lovely culture, it's a great people, flexible, but they can't breathe in this place. There's no room, and if the score goes down, they move office, the score goes back up again. So it's interesting. I mean, do you think the future of your office will change in terms of that Google campus, or like more of a campus feel, or do you think you'll always have an element of formality to it, or
go on.
Do you think it's different, like the home's home, work is work, or I don't know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, everyone's very different. I mean, we don't see some people for weeks on end who just continually work from home, because that's where they find themselves most productive. They find the office a distraction. Some people love coming in the office and being around other people and find that communicative, sort of collaborative feel is the best way forward for them, and that's when they get their work done. For me, I always want Reddico to be a place where people will enjoy coming to work. But if people want to work from home, then again, that's absolutely fine. That's the way I see it. I want the hub of Reddico to be at the office, and that's where the fun is, and that's where we get things done and we work together. But if you work better at home and that's how you work best, then that's the right thing for you.
So let's talk about holiday.
Can I just answer that question before you go on? So, like for me, I just don't subscribe to the Google campus model. Because I think it's built on a premise of give everything that people need, so they don't need to leave the office, and it works because it's driven by the more people spend time working, the more money that Google can make. And I feel that.
Do you think that's what it is? Obviously, do you think that's a fact why they did it?
That's whole Google's business model with everything that they do is how can we drive ad revenue?
Sure, but you might be right, by the way. I know you probably are, because you probably looked at it more than I have. And I've obviously spoken at Google in Dublin, and you're right. Once you're in there and you get your free food and your coffees and everything,
it's not just the food; it's everything. It's like it's just.
They don't feel like they're chained to it though. They kind of quite like it's quite, isn't it? Like if you're working for someone and you're not having to spend £300 a week or £300 a month on food and breakfast, it's quite maybe it's a good. I don't know. Maybe it's a positive thing. I mean, financially for some people.
I think
they all seemed to be quite happy when I was there. They didn't look that miserable.
I wonder why.
Maybe they got an NPS higher than you. I don't know. Sorry.
Maybe. I just feel that it's a one-dimensional level that you look at, because it's just about you existing within that company, right? Whereas, like for us, it's that balance. Like everyone's got their own life, everyone's got their own stuff going on, and for me to sort of say, well, am I happy to build a culture where it's focused on getting people in to stay in the office as long as possible to drive the company forward? It kind of feels I'd be taken away from like their own personal life, their own development, their own outside interests, which I kind of want to balance both. So to give an example, sort of one of the ladies in our team, Laura, just to give it an example, I was speaking to the other day. So she leaves slightly earlier. She goes to pick up her daughter, and then she takes daughter to ballet class. And she sits outside on the laptop, and she will work for an hour. Well, and for me, that's like what flexibility is like, right? So work is moving around her life. I think she even jumps on a client call at that point as well. But that for me, that's what the balance is. To like, it's not just how can we keep them in the office longer. It's actually how can we fit work around their lives when they need it to. And that's for me where I want culture to move to, which is kind of why I don't subscribe to the Google world. I appreciate.
But if your team turned around and said, "Hey, listen, we really want nice offices and breakfasts and lunches, and that's important to them," then you would do that because you're that guy. But I completely agree with what you said. I genuinely love that complete trust and flexibility that you're giving the people to work for you, so they can integrate the work into their life, but not in a way that's forced to dominate it. And I think it's really, really, honestly, I think what you do is textbook example of what everybody should be doing. If they're watching this, they should be going on this, uniquely to their organisation, because I'm sure, as you said, you've done it uniquely to yours. But let's talk about let's talk about holiday. I don't know why someone's trying to call me. I've got to put my watch on silent, but to quickly turn that off. See, it's live. You can do that stuff when it's live. It's great. You don't have to edit it out. You don't have to spend any money editing it out. So, talk to me about. So, what do you? It's not unlimited holiday. It's called self-regulated holiday. Yeah, that's the title.
It's not as fancy, but it's more. It's more
okay, and so tell me about how you put it in and what were the results. I'd be interested to know.
Yeah, so I suppose the interesting thing with all of this is that you think there's going to be a load of rules and guidelines around how it can work, but with the principle of trying to give freedom. By putting guidelines in place, you're taking away the very freedom you're trying to give to people.
Which is what holacracy is, right? So holacracy's got these massive charters of rules, which make it almost impossible to put in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
So it was very much a case of this is what we want to do. We want to let people choose when they have annual leave and how much they have and when they work from home and what hours they pick. But there are no rules around it. So everyone kind of regulates themselves, and that's why I call it self-regulated, because it is a self-regulated system. So there's no line managerial approval.
Is it capped then?
No, there's no cap. So you could have 50 days a year if you wanted to, but as long as you have a positive impact. So again, it's that whole caveat of having a positive impact on what you're doing.
I could work for you 1 day a year and have a positive impact.
But could you hit your targets?
Definitely in a day, yeah. I can't do sales for you guys.
Well, that's the thing is we talk about it on sort of LinkedIn
Maverick,
and stuff.
That's what happened. Did you remember that? In the book Maverick, he said, if the sales guys hit the target or girl salesperson goes to the beach, and that was it. So that's a similar philosophy, right?
It's moving to output rather than input.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many hours someone works. So if they start at 9,
what's
finish
the
at 5.
record for holiday? That's what everyone wants to know.
So I took the most last year.
Did you?
So it was about 39 days. So just about, kind of double what I'd had the year before if we didn't have unlimited.
Is that why you look so relaxed?
But it's a really interesting point, because the reason why Luke took so much last year is because he got married and he went on honeymoon, right? Okay. And it's like, again, this whole 9 to 5 is trying to fit everyone into the same box. Everyone works the same. Everyone is best at working at the same hours, but that's not true. Yeah. And everyone's got own stuff going on. Like, some people need more holiday than others. They just need more time to recover. Some people have got life events going on. They get married. They're having kids. They want to take more time off. And it's kind of like, nope, we got to fit people into 20 days plus bank holidays. It's all very rigid. It's all very archaic, and it's not very trusting.
Yeah. And I'm going to be a bit playful though, and I'm going to ask annoying questions.
Go for it.
Because everyone's thinking it, right? So I'm just a little.
It's the fear. So I've spoken about this before, and people are like, well, couldn't someone just book 3 months off if you did that? And that's like, sure they could. But if you launch this and you've got someone that just then books 3-6 months off, you got to ask the question of like, are they the right person to be working for you? Are they trying to drive themselves forward? Are they trying to improve themselves, improve the company? Sure. And it comes back to what I said earlier. Things like this make you question, you ask better questions of yourself and ask better questions of the business. If you can't do it, then what's the real reason for it? And I think that's the most interesting. Sorry?
Do you know how many holidays you took last
year? Do I know
how
many holidays I took? Yeah, I do. 25.
25. And did you feel guilty?
No.
No, you didn't have any guilt.
No, because
the other thing is, I think when I read about the other system, which isn't your system, I think that some people felt guilty when they took too much, and some people felt like they were letting other colleague members down, and that there was a self-regulating pressure of not letting people down, and that's what was organising. By the way, I haven't put this in. I don't know about this. I think it's amazing what you're doing. I'm just asking difficult questions.
Oh, go for it.
I kind of, everything you say, I'm like, yeah, I agree with you. And it's really good for you to spell that out. You clearly trust implicitly the people in your company, and you that trust is just there. And and I'm sure because you trust them, no one. Rarely do people to exploit that.
But that's it. I think if you go down the full trust route, the people that aren't right stand out even more than what they do at the moment. It's much easier to hide in that company where there isn't that autonomy, there isn't that trust. And we've had people in the past where we've just had conversations and said, look, this is not quite right. In terms of the role that you're doing, let us help you leave well. We'll support you, and when you have that, generally when you have that honest conversation with someone, they know that they're not right for what they're doing. And as like when you get that situation as an employer, as a business owner, your role at that point is to help them move on and find what is right for them. And I think
what comes across really nice about you guys is that it's clearly not a gimmick. Do you know, like you're not just doing this for PR, it's authentic, and I love that. And what's your official title?
So head of culture and business improvement.
Do you have a queue of people wrapped around your building trying to work for you guys every day going? Because I'm not saying it's cynical, but I'm just saying genuinely, like I know why you're doing it, but it must be incredible for your attraction strategy. Like you must have changed from having to find people locally to having people knocking on the door saying, am I a culture fit? Can I work for you? You know.
Yeah, I mean,
we've
had people from, obviously in Kent, people from a lot of other agencies in Kent sort of getting in touch about jobs and things like that, and it shows that this is the kind of way that people want to work.
Sure.
In fact, recruitment's one of the things we've had to consider the most, because I suppose not everyone is right for this type of system, as Nick was saying, and that's absolutely fine. If you can't handle trust and freedom and responsibility and want a more traditional sort of framework in the company you work for, that's fine. You're just not right for Reddico. And the hardest part is when people join and they find it hard at the start to kind of get to grips with the freedom they've got. So being able to work from home without people questioning it, or be able to get up at 3 in the afternoon and walk out, or come in at 10 and not worry what people are thinking. So it takes a few months for people to really get used to it and really get used to that culture of what we're expecting people to do.
That's our biggest challenge now.
Yeah.
We've had to redo our onboarding process to improve that.
Yeah, because you have expectation.
Because we've done it over 18 months. Like like you said earlier, like the roadmap, the small changes, the team have adjusted to those to the point that we've implemented a lot. And now someone comes in and they're faced with all those changes right from the get-go, and it takes people a while. Like some people won't take a work from home day for the first 3 months because it's ingrained in them, and it's kind of undoing the traditional business structure that takes.
Do you know that's
takes
the
time.
Big Rebecca, who was in here on the couple of interviews before, they've moved to flat structure, and the biggest thing is when they onboard people is spelling out that you're not gonna you have a meritocratic approach to your career. It's based on your skill set, not on the power rise, and having to almost qualify that out, because otherwise people come in and go, they expect it. So I guess that's something that they had the same problem. Everyone come in and, what do you mean I can't get promoted? You can, but it's not into a role where people will work for you. It's into a role where you'll coach people, as you use the word coach, which I really liked, or you are going to be a guru or an expert. We're going to invest in you to become the best you can.
Yeah, we still got promotions and stuff. You can go from junior to midweight to senior in respective roles, but it just means that promotion doesn't mean you're then managing other people, because ultimately, who wants to be managed? I was at an event last year where someone was speaking about managers and said, sort of, put your hands in the air if you've got a manager. Everyone put their hands up. Put your hands in the air if you think you need a manager. No one put their hand up. And it just goes to show that actually there's all these managers that we don't need and are kind of redundant now in modern.
But it's, as Nick said earlier on, I think, in fact, no, actually, you said, Lico, is that sometimes I found that when we've put flat structure, they go, well, who do I speak to about this and who do I speak to about that? And it's just understanding who's got what role and responsibility. But instead of having one person, if you've got an HR issue, you can speak to head of talent, or head of people, or if you've got a problem with a salary, well, you speak to the finance department. It's like speaking to different people rather than necessarily having one person that solves everything for you.
Right.
So 2 more things I want to cover off, because this has been really good.
Do you want to talk about the results from Unlimited Holiday?
Yeah. So what was the results of you putting it in? So on average, because you got to tell me what did everyone's holiday go up?
Is
it all double? Did everyone go?
So annual leave basically increased about 40% on average.
40%.
40%.
So what was how many days a year did you do before?
We had traditional
20.
20 plus bank holidays.
Standard 20 plus bank holidays.
And did you do 1 extra day for each? No, you didn't. So 20. So it went up to about 30 days on average.
Yeah,
which is not too far off.
20, was it 28, something like that?
And the other question about Unlimited Holiday is the side of people taking less. So one of the things that we do throughout the year is kind of say, actually, are people on par to take that throughout the year? Like a minimum we want people taking is like, was it 25?
It's still the 20. So basically we said you've got as much holiday as you want, but you have to take at least 20. That's what we want everyone to do.
That's really nice.
So
that's
we kind of give people
we're
a
not
nudge.
Accept a minimum.
Yeah.
And that stops the whole argument around.
Is Pete having palpitations on the finances on this?
No, I'm actually really enjoying this actually, because I sat next to your brother at one of the dinners we arranged last year, and he was saying that the sick rate went down quite dramatically
from 1.8 days to like 1 day. But near.
So you had increase in overall holiday, but sickness went down,
even though we now pay for all sickness.
Yeah.
So we didn't before.
Okay. And what happened to the Net Promoter Score?
So that went from 40, 45 up to 96.
What, 96? Does it even go that high? To be fair, Pete and I have got a 100% Net Promoter Score on our workshop days over the last 14 months, which we are loving. It's only going to go down though. That's the problem. It's hard to keep at 96.
No, absolutely. Well, I mean, so last year, every single quarter was in the 90s.
Yeah.
So we've done really well from that side.
Just very, very respectable. I mean, I force everyone to use Office Vibe, and the main reason for that is because we get a really good. I can benchmark against different people then, whereas if I use a unique system, it's very hard to see, and also I can learn. So I don't know if you've seen Office Vibe, but it had a section called Wellness. If the wellness is down, which is driven typically by stress of deadlines and lack of kind of overall, healthy work environment, which is it's always the one that's lowest actually in agencies. I think that the deadlines driven businesses in some cases can cause that. But I'm pretty sure, like the first person we interviewed, Suzanne Linton, she has no timesheets in her business. So she got rid of timesheets. And hers is also in the top, like she's on the top scale for Office Vibe globally, which is, so, but and they do have Net Promoter Score. I don't think it's as high as 96. It's like 87. It's high. So congratulations. I mean,
it's just hard work, but like it also like.
I pretend you're a client. So no, I think
like to thank Pete and Spencer.
We're doing bugger for letting us broadcast how much better you are.
But I think part of it is having someone that is dedicated that can implement it, which is what Luke's done. Yeah. Part of it is.
I love the fact that Luke hasn't come, because a lot of people will say to me, I need to get ahead of people, ahead of talent, or that role, but I love that he's come. I'm imagining that when you had that he was the archetype of your values, your behaviours. I was going, no, he must have been like the right. He had the right culture or values to do that. I'm imagining
definitely, and. Like Luke's taken it on and embraced it, and there was like elements of the manifesto that we would debate as a whole kind of like leadership team, saying like, at what level do we go all in? Like, should we restrict that? Should we move that back? And like we went round for quite a while before it was all in. And as Luke said, it's like a mindset shift, not only for us as owners to that, but for Luke to be able to fully embrace it, and then for the team. And part of it's the continued improvement, which I think is that like how the team have embraced it, but also the feedback that they're willing to give. Like we're constantly looking to sort of, okay, well, what's next? And so we're now starting to look at like wellness and stuff like that. So we have like yoga sessions on first thing on Monday. This year we're looking at like financial.
That's why everyone comes in on a Monday. They don't come in for the meeting because they're coming in for the free yoga.
That's why everyone leaves by 11 as well.
Yeah, is that right? That's brilliant.
So they don't. But there's things like financial education. So I think one of the challenges for an employer is we have to fix what the school system should do for the generation of sort of young adults coming through into the workforce. There's not only a responsibility now on wellness and mental health, which we have like a mental health first aider that's in the office that speaks to the team like once a quarter. We try and look at what we can do around that, the flexible working, and also things like the yoga, the wellness, but also that's adapting into the workplace. But there's also the element of like we have to pick up the fact that schools aren't preparing the next generation to go through into the workforce. And so part of what we're looking at this year is around like financial education, like life events and things like that we as business owners can help people get through or
Smart.
help. And I think because it's like it's that whole like we need to support their lives, their mental well-being, so that they can perform the best that they can at work, so that they can push themselves, so that they can develop themselves. And if you just look at one piece, which is at work, and you don't try and look at the outside elements, or at least support them in the outside elements, then you kind of like, for me, like failing in the responsibility of what a business owner should look at.
Cool. So look, we are running out of time, which I think we're going to have to get you back because there's just so much fantastic content, as my friends keep joking to me about. So you're all about content these days. And in particular, I'd like to talk to you because I've gone on this journey of putting flat organizational structures in, and I had this thing. I used to call them eco teams at Blue Halo, the self-sufficient teams. And but actually, I didn't read Maverick, but very much along what Maverick had said, and actually holacracy, but without the rules. Now I call them pods, and I think globally there's some people who have picked up the same term, and so there's a few of us that talk about it. So, and I know that you're looking to have
change that.
What was the word you used earlier on? Sociocracy. So I'm going to get you back to talk about that because if I can, I really appreciate you giving up time today to come and speak to us. I'm truly in awe. And all my questions have been a little bit tongue-in-cheek because actually I completely agree with everything you're saying. And I think, kudos to you. You certainly deserve that accolade for one of the best places, and to have it so high up in terms of other agencies, which is not easy because we're pretty smart as agency people generally.
So pretty forward thinking.
So I hope you've enjoyed that. Pete, I've been talking too much today, Pete, and we were rabbiting on. Are you okay over there?
Yeah, it's just superb content. I didn't want to
I'm going to say hashtag content though. So thank you for listening. A couple of announcements to say. First of all, if you're listening to this and it's before April the 22nd, somewhere at the end of April, we've got a big Agencynomics event on where we're actually talking. And now I'm kind of really regretting I've not got these guys on talking. I might even try and find a way to squeeze you in on a panel. But we are running an event which will be entitled Agency for Good. And we're trying to celebrate the best of what agencies are doing, not just in the culture, but in terms of the way they're paying it forwards. And so, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this episode. Follow us on @Agencynomics. And I've even got a public profile, Pete, now on Instagram. I've only got about 4 followers because I've just had to create one.
Did you go with @SpencerPriv?
No.
The kiddies, young kiddies.
Oh, that's for my personal one.
Oh, right. Okay.
I've made the anyway. So you can find us on Instagram as well. So thank you for listening. And that's a wrap.